Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Molly Haynes. I'm the ERP Strategy Coordinator with Revolution Group, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Revolution Group. Can you go to the next slide, please? Revolution Group was Plex's first partner over 20 years ago. Based on our ability to speak manufacturing, we find the best way for Plex to fit your business needs. In consulting, we offer services such as UX transitions, training workshops like costing, SQL, and Teleplex 2.0 and VisionPlex. We also handle optimizations and continuous improvement initiatives to see how your use of Plex may have changed over the years through process changes, new challenges, turnover, etc. We hope you find the best way to utilize it for the present day. If you could go to the next slide, please. In addition, we are one of the only partners who specialize in Plex development. We have created custom applications, completed integrations between Salesforce, ADP, and other payroll systems, as well as creating an integration from a configure to order system, Configure One. We've also helped customers with custom applications, process flows, and custom documents, which are some of the newer features in Plex. If you can go to the next slide, please. And these are some of our customers. So thank you again for joining us today. Today we're joined by 3 experts who will walk us through practical ways to streamline accounts payable with automation in Plex. Geraldine Christner is the product manager at Nimbello and has been with the company since it began, with the deep knowledge of AP automation processes, best practices, and multiple ERP systems. She brings a wealth of knowledge to anyone looking to automate. Also with us today is Damian Howley, is the Chief Customer Officer at Nimbello. He leads customer success support and go-to-market execution. He brings deep experience scaling SaaS companies from early stage through growth, with a focus on retention, expansion, and building customer-led organizations. And finally, Regina Jones, ERP consultant here at Revolution Group. Regina partners with Plex customers to implement and optimize Plex ERP, backed by more than a decade, specializing in Plex and a strong accounting foundation across manufacturing and insurance. So welcome to the Nimbello folks. I'm going to turn it over to them.
Well, thank you very much, Molly. It's fantastic to be here today, and thank you to everybody for joining. I'm going to just give you a quick summary, high-level introduction to Nimbello, and then I will hand it over to Geraldine and Regina, who are going to show you the product hands-on, give you a full tour. So I promise my slides are light and quick. But let me just introduce you to Nimbello. So as we like to state, we are the experts in automating PO-based invoices. This has been the core focus of our business since we were founded in 2010. Over the last 15 years, we have focused on complex, high-volume automation. We have focused on arguably the most painful part of accounts payable. If it is, confusing or not easy, that is really where we have tended to go for. And that is why we tend to focus on manufacturing and higher education. Over 80% of our customer base is in manufacturing. Our customers, they range from, on the lower side, call it 8 to 10,000 invoices per year, up to our largest customer, which receives 1.4 million invoices per year. We are completely full service. We receive invoices in all formats, predominantly PDF. We also receive invoices in CXML, EDI, and we even receive some paper invoices. But this is just a high-level introduction to Nimbello. As I stated, we are again predominantly focused on manufacturing. We are new to Plex, and I think that's probably something that for those of you that we have talked to may have shined through. We've been honest and direct about that, and we've been quite fortunate to have this partnership with Revolution Group. We spend a lot of our customers are deployed in similar style ERPs such as Sightline, QAD, other manufacturing ERPs. We are again very, very trusted and awarded, right? And at a high level, we manage over $14 billion worth of payables coming through our system. So we've been doing this a while and doing quite a lot of it. As far as AP automation is concerned, there's a lot of AP automation out there, and if you go and search, right, you'll find a million different flavors of it. And as I mentioned, we kind of went top down, right, from the most complex. What we have focused on is really automating the entire end-to-end experience. So that is everything from the AP inbox to the data collection, the OCR aspect of it, to all of the matching and pairing, and then subsequently identifying all of the exceptions. A lot of the systems, or most of the systems out there, will leave a lot of that exception identification on your AP team. They'll do the AP inbox, they'll do the OCR or the data conversion, and then just kind of present your team with the data. Again, we've worked on making sure that we are truly automating the entire end-to-end process, and that even includes the payments part. So once we'll collect your invoices, we'll convert them to digital, we'll run them through, match all the line items, we'll check all the tolerances, tax, the freight, identify all the exceptions, the holds that need to be in there, and then everything that is not hold goes right through and is clear for payment. And then we'll also process the payment, send out the checks, send out the ACH, and so on and so forth. So it is full end to end. As far as our software is concerned, we look at it as 5 different components. As I mentioned, we've got the collect, that is an AP inbox, where all the, it's an email inbox, right, where it's smart, and there's automation and machine learning there for us to identify which invoices are PO versus non-PO, or which ones are statements versus invoices, or which one's junk mail, and so on and so forth. We do provide a full OCR interface that you're going to see today. That's our what we call digitize. It's very slick. It automatically learns. There are no templates. It goes through and identifies all the different fields. We do provide a process SaaS software and also a routing SaaS software. This is our backend where your AP team and your buyers would interface with any of the invoices that are coming in. And then every single one of our deployments integrates back to the ERP, in this case, a direct API integration back into Plex. I'm gonna click. As far as I skipped one. As far as our software is concerned, there we go, thank you. We sell the software by itself, that's the end-to-end full suite. And then we have the Nimbello payments add-on that comes separate. So you do not need to necessarily go with us for all your payments. It is a nice capability because you see all the, the end user, you see all the vendor payments all right inside one native system with all the reporting. Your whole AP team can see it and so on. Sorry, the clicking to the next slide is a little slow, but bear with me here. As far as service is concerned, we implement probably 20 to 30 new customers a quarter. We have all the technical support teams, implementation teams that you would need. We run through full training where we training your AP clerk, your admins, we do OCR training. We do all the full aspects. This is kind of our bread and butter. It's complicated software. It's with an ERP integration. And so we're not just handing you a piece of software and giving you a high five, right? We're walking you through, holding your hands. You'll get to know our implementation team well. Looking at just the high-level architecture here. So as I mentioned, we take invoices in electronic format. We also take invoices in email. Our EDI and XML, those can come right in. They can skip the OCR process. They can go into our Nimbello matching and pairing engine. For email, those go into the inbox manager. We do have some AI that we have deployed to automate a lot of the the collection process. We do have a direct integration with Plex, which we'll talk about, but from the Plex side, we would take your vendor masters, your PO, your receipts, and your GLs. We use all that to match up the invoices against the purchase orders, the receipts, so on and so forth. We pump out any clear invoice data back into Plex, or any exceptions would go right into the Nimbello software. And then we also do have a vendor portal where your vendors can see their payments, their invoice status. They can handle communication, and you can reduce the overall management of vendors. And lastly, and I think why we're here, which is exciting, right? We are working very closely with the Revolution Group. I think this has been a fantastic partnership. We have developed an API first integration, so there's no files, there's no RPA. It's purpose built specifically for AP automation. As I mentioned, the files we grab, right, the vendor master, the purchase orders, GLs, these are all seamlessly integrated, all pulled back into Nimbello. We can process invoices across multiple receipts and POs, and invoices can be entered and held until receiving completed. So these are just a few highlights. We'll get into more details, but we are really excited about this because it's an API integration, because of the reliability, the consistency, just because there doesn't, seem to be a methodology that is commonly leveraged for integration into Plex. But we're delighted to be working side by side with the Revolution Group. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Geraldine Christner, our head of product, to walk you through the Nimbello software.
All right, thank you, Damien. As we are going through the software, if you have any questions, please put them into the questions section and we can answer those as we go. Damien, if you see anything, or the Revolution Group, that you want me to address while I'm going through the demo, absolutely can do so. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about the OCR side, the invoice capture and the OCR side, and then I'm really going to delve into the workflow itself. So on the OCR side, when the invoices come in, the OCR is using...
We're still seeing the slides.
Yes, I haven't changed over yet.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, it's okay. The OCR is using intelligent capture, machine learning, all of those different things to help pick up the data off of the invoice. And so that is going to read everything that's on the invoice. It's going to pull out what it needs. We're going to enhance it with your actual vendor number. We're going to enhance it, making sure that the PO belongs to the vendor that's picked up, that it's accurate, and some of those small data items that the vendors don't always take care of when they are submitting the invoice. After the OCR, the invoices are going to come over to this workflow. So in the workflow, each of your PCNs will be what we call a tenant. And that way the APIs can connect to each of them individually. That means each PCN can have its own vendors, can have its own purchase orders, its own GLs. They do not have to be controlled through a master, and each PCN can have its own rules. So if you have locations across the states, then your individual rules, especially pertaining to tax and things like that, can be set up to do validations based on the locale of the PCN, and it doesn't have to be 100% controlled just by a corporate location. We do have single sign-on available. So single sign-on will allow you to not have to manage multiple logins, of course. You can just use your single login in order to come into the site. So when you log in, this is the AP view that you see. So the AP view that we see is going to show everything that is in the system that is on hold. So you don't have to go searching email boxes. You don't have to track people down. You don't have to go look and see if something is still on their desk. Everything that is an exception is going to be here on the left-hand side. That is going to be your PO invoices that have an exception on them. That is going to be your non-purchase order invoices that need to have approvals. And that's going to be verification items such as potential duplicates, unknown vendors, math errors, different things like that that could come through from the vendor that will prevent the invoice from going through the rest of the workflow, are captured ahead of time to make sure that it's valid before it then tries to match to a purchase order or go through a non-PO approval. Your right-hand side is what is ready to export out to Plex. That export is done throughout the day, so it does not need to be at exact specific times, but we can send the invoices out to Plex as often as you like. During that process, we're going to do some additional checks and balances that are both audit-based and functional-based. And then we will get a confirmation back for each invoice that we are sending over to Plex. The invoices that come back are either going to have a voucher information on it, and the invoice is going to move to posted on our side, indicating it's ready for payment within Plex. Or if there happens to be some kind of an error that happens, it will come back as failed so that you know exactly what's going on with the invoice at all times. It's always trackable. You also have communication tools down here on the bottom left that is both internal as well as vendor communications. So vendor communications, if you want to utilize the vendor portal, can be done at an invoice level. It could be done at a vendor level. It could be done via email. All of those different options are available so that your vendors that are regularly calling, asking about, did you get my invoice or can I get a status on this? You can redirect them to the vendor portal and let them be able to see their information, but they are restricted to only their information, as well as you can restrict them to what it is they're able to do within the workflow as well. From an end user standpoint, so your buyers and approvers, when they log in, the site is designed for your end users to come in and help manage what's going on with the invoices. They are primarily going to see this left-hand side, and if they are only working with PO invoices, they will just see the PO. If they're only working with non-PO, they will just see the non-PO. So they're not going to be inundated with everything that's out here that can become overwhelming for them. They're just going to see very direct information, exactly what they're supposed to work on and how they're supposed to work on it. When we go through the POQ, again, what AP is going to see is you're going to see everything that's outstanding here. So you're going to see the vendor information and invoice information. You're going to see invoice date. You're going to see who it's currently directed to. You're going to see why it's on hold. And then you can also see some other action and approver information here as well. So at a glance, you have an idea of everything that's going on that's on hold for POs in this example. And you can see exactly who's working on them, how long they've been outstanding, so your days on portal, and how many days since the invoice has had an action taken on it. So when an invoice first comes into the workflow, the user it's directed to is going to get an email notification. It's usually a once-a-day notification telling them that they have new items in their queue. If they do not take action on the invoice, meaning they do not make an update, the purchase order is not updated, the receipts are not received, they don't leave a comment, then after so many days, which you get to decide how many days that is, they will get an escalation email. That escalation email will go to the user it's directed to, and it will list all of the invoices that are at the escalation period. And you can choose somebody like a purchasing manager who will also get one email that will list for the day all of the invoices, PO invoices, that are at that escalation period. So for each location, you can have not only the user who is getting initial information and then reminders, but you also have somebody outside of AP that can also be responsible for ensuring that those invoices are getting completed and the users are being followed up with.
Hey, Geraldine, we have some questions. Do you want to just kind of answer them as we go?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, question from Bill. Please elaborate. What is RPI and why is API better?
Robotic process versus the API. Okay.
You-
The robotic process, and Pat, you might be better to answer this one. The API is more of a direct connection between the systems. The robotic process is more of a program that is imitating what a user would do manually.
Oh, you nailed it,
And
Carolyn.
if I can just add to that, and sorry, I went off camera so I could leave it to you, Geraldine. Is the RPA process is subject to a lot more, it's prone to more errors. It's prone to more breakage. There are things that can or cannot be accomplished. There may be some data inconsistencies. It requires more ongoing maintenance. An API integration is a direct data integration between Plex and Nimbello. It is as solid and as, it is the modern standard for all software integration across literally every single piece of software that you use. RPA is not at all a modern accepted standard because of all its proneness to errors. So that is the point of differentiation, and why together Revolution Group and Nimbello has sought an API integration.
Another question, OCR is optical character recognition, meaning scanning in paper, question mark. Do I need a dedicated scanner?
No, you do not need a dedicated scanner. In fact, from your email box, you would simply forward the invoices that you want to have processed, and the OCR then picks up directly from the email. So you do not have to have a dedicated scanner. You do not have to have any of those items. While best practices is single invoice, single email, our OCR is capable of doing multiple invoices in an email and multiple invoices in a PDF as well.
Another question, does Nimbello need its own email?
No. So we will create an email on our side, and you can send whatever you want over to that email. So we're not going to try and get through your securities and your firewalls and all those different types of things by connecting to your email. We will maintain on our side, and however you want to send the invoices to our side, you can do that however works best for you.
Okay. And one more question from Rory. Do Plex customers typically replace the existing ERP approval workflow by using Nimbello's workflow, or do some use Nimbello to automate invoice collection and input upload, but retain their Plex approval workflows?
Currently, the clients that we have been working with want to replace the Plex workflow with the Nimbello workflow.
Couple other questions from Matt. What if some vendors still mail us their invoices?
Yeah, that's definitely a case. And I'm sure somebody has handwritten email invoices as well. Simply scan those. Any scanner works. Send them through to the email. Handwritten are a little bit more difficult. Our workflow does allow for those vendors who do handwritten, if you want to transition them to the vendor portal, we do have a create page where the vendor can actually quickly do a PO flip or enter their invoice, attach the image, and submit it. That many times works really well for the handwritten ones.
Okay, no
Yeah,
more questions as of now.
I'll just add to that one too. It is paper invoices are dying. You can scan them in, convert them to PDF, or what most of our customers do is just call that vendor and ask for them to transition to PDF. Now there's still, I mean, I don't know what the number is, but it is an extremely low quantity of invoices that we receive via paper, and we see that number diminishing very rapidly. So probably best to see if you can convert them.
We do have one additional question. How Nimbello how does Nimbello work if auto voucher upon receipt is enabled? How does three-way match work?
All right, those are excellent questions. And that one I will get to in the next screen. So I'll explain all that process next.
And that's it for now.
All right. So as noted, this is kind of the AP view where you get to see everything that's out here. If I logged in as Norm, I would only see the 4 invoices that are currently directed to Norm. So from his perspective, even though there's 11 invoices on hold, only 4 of them are of a concern to him. So those are the 4 that he would see, and he would see that he's got a receipts hold, he's got a freight hold, he's got another receipt hold, and he has a price hold. So he knows exactly what's going on, what needs to be worked on, how long it's been out here, who the vendors are, all of that information. Going into the details of the individual invoice. What you're going to see at the top here is you're going to see a thumbnail of the image so that you can do, from an AP perspective, if you're just doing a quick review to choose the vendor, or maybe it's a duplicate that you're looking at or something like that, you can just do a quick review of the header and the invoice total directly from here. You don't have to open anything else. If you want to see the larger image, or you want to do a download or anything like that, the view invoice image will give you a full screen option of the invoice that is mobile across screens. So you can work on it on another screen, keep it up, whatever you want to do with that. Your top is your vendor, your hold reason, and your header information. Your center is your commenting, directing, and comment history. So you can send an email to anybody that you want in the workflow that has access to that type of invoice. So if I want to send an email to Hank and Lucy, I can do this as Cooper, who it's currently directed to, or I can do this as AP. Anybody has access to do this process. I can send a comment to multiple individuals, and that simply sends an email. It doesn't change the responsible person. It just sends an email with whatever you have entered into the comment history so that somebody else can take a look, answer a question, whatever it might be. If I want to change the responsible person, if I want to change it from Cooper and I want to put it into Hank's responsibility, I can use the directed to, and I can change the responsible person who will get the notifications, the escalations, all of those different things. So I can either simply send comments or leave comments, or I can actually redirect the invoice to somebody else that needs to take action on it. You can also set up standardized comments. So things that you're regularly having to tell people, you can set up so that you simply click on the short name of what you want, and it will pre-fill the comment for you. You can use this for reporting purposes as well. So if you want to report on how often you are following up, for example, we do have reports where we can enter the keywords that you're looking for, and it will give you all of the invoices that contain comments of those keywords. So you can use it for reporting, you can use it for performance tracking, any of those different things that you want to do. The comment history does stay with the invoice forever. So you will always see when something happened, who did it, who it was directed to at that time, if there was an email sent to somebody, the status at that time, and then what the comments were. So whether it's system comments or it is manual comments, you always have that 100% audit trail of everything that happened to that invoice during that time period. And you can access this long after the invoice has been posted. As long as the invoice is in our system, you will be able to access those comments. The middle section here then is your purchase order and receipt data. So we will get your purchase order and receipt data a couple times throughout the day, and it's going to contain all of the active information from Plex. Again, that's an API integration, so we will be getting that data and pulling it over into our system. That's going to give you the line numbers that are still available to be billed against. and then the part numbers, descriptions, how much was ordered. And for the receivers, we're going to show each individual receiver as an individual line item. So if this 25 was split into 2 receivers, you would see one line for PO line 1 with 20 and one line for PO line for 5, and you would see both of the individual receivers that are associated with that. We're also pulling over packing slip information and a lot of other information as well. Some of it is not used every day, so it's toward the back. The items that are used more frequently are toward the front of the grid view here. The bottom section then is what came in off of the invoice, whether it was a data file that came in or it came through the OCR. This is what the vendor has set. Now, to the question of three-way match. We know the vendor's not going to provide you that information. They're not going to provide you the line number. They might not even bill you for the entire purchase order, which is fine. And they might not bill you in the same order as the purchase order or for the same number of lines. So the first thing we do on a PO invoice is we determine which lines you are being billed for. To do that, we're going to first look at 2 items as a holistic invoice. The first item is packing slip. Is there a packing slip number on the invoice, and is there a matching packing slip number on the purchase order or on the receivers? If there is, we look at the dollar amounts associated, and if the dollar amounts match, we pull that receiver from the receiving data down into the invoice, and we replace the invoice data with the receipt, with that packing slip receipt data. If we don't have that, then we can look at the holistic of just the receivers in general. And we look to see the dollar amount of the invoice. Is there a matching dollar amount on a receiver? If there is, we do the same thing. We replace the invoice lines with those receipt lines. Otherwise, if those 2 items are not available, we go through the invoice line by line and determine line by line which line numbers you are being billed for. To do that, we start with part number. So we look at the part number on the invoice, we look at the part numbers on the purchase order. Do you have a single unique batch? If you do, we assign that line number. If you do not, then we go to the unit price. Do you have a single unique unit price match between the invoice and the purchase order? If you do, that line is assigned. If you don't, we then go to the receipt quantity. Is the receipt quantity unique between that invoice line and a receiver line? If it is, we assign that line. Otherwise, if there's nothing that we can do to assign that line, we skip that line and we go to the next line on the invoice that has a part number. And we go through that same process. If at the end of the process there's any lines that do not have a line number assigned, then it will go on hold for a user to decide which lines are being billed. Once we know all the lines that are being billed, then we go into, are you billed accurately? And the accurately part of it has a lot of different rules that you can choose to enable or disable. We can handle PO types that do not require receipts. We can handle all PO types that do require receipts. We check for pricing variances. We check for extended amount variances. We check for, do you have, if it's a receipt required, do you have receipts? Do they match out to the invoice? Can we uniquely assign those receipts to the invoice? Are you being billed for the entirety of the receipt? We also look for additional charges. Do you have freight? Do you have tax? Do you have other types of charges? And are those charges within an allowable tolerance? So anything that is price related, you can say that you have an allowable tolerance of either a percentage, a dollar amount, or a combination. So if the invoice is within that tolerance, it's not going to stop for that hold. If it's outside of the tolerance, it will stop for that hold and stop for somebody to review it, approve it, update the purchase order, whatever the particular situation requires. On a two-way purchase order, we also have the ability to stop the invoice before it exports so somebody can sign off on it. making sure that the services were completed or whatever it might be. Regardless of what the hold is, we are going to tell you what the problem is with the invoice. And that is one of the big differences. We're going to tell you exactly where the hold is. So in this case, it's PO line 3. And we're going to tell you what the hold is. So there's no guessing game. If this was a 100-line invoice and it was line 55 that had an issue, you would know that it was line 55 that had an issue. So instead of trying to figure that out by entering it manually and then having to reverse it, you can see all that information up front, you know exactly where the issues are, and they are corrected before they go to Plex. Each of the hold reasons also are able to that hold and pertains. So price variance, you may set automatically to fire. That fire is on the purchase order, we go this person to that person automatically. You may have other holds such as a receiving hold on the receiving department, or taxes you might want to leave with the AP or send to a tax specialist. However you want to handle that, each of those rules are independent, and you can choose the tolerances and the directed to, if the invoice falls out of tolerance, that should go to in the case there is an error. In regards to how to fix the error, it's going to depend on what it is. In this case, you have a pricing variance on line 3 because the invoice is for $81, but the purchase order is $16. So there's a couple of options. It could be a unit of measure difference in which the invoice just needs to be updated to match out to the unit of measure on the purchase order. You can do that by opening up the edit at the line level and just correcting the two fields. It could be a problem in Plex that you can update, or it could be something that you are just approving and you want to allow it to go to Plex as a purchase price variance. That is perfectly okay. So all of those options are available, and how you want your users to do that can be controlled via security. It can be controlled via comments, however you want to do that. Every client's a little bit different in those manners. You also have the ability to add additional documentation. So if, for example, the buyer says, hey, AP, I need this short paid because the vendor's contract says this and we're not going to pay the difference. They can upload that backup documentation. They can upload any emails that they've had with the vendor, any of those things that an auditor would want to see. And then AP has the ability to then make that short pay change. So the buyers cannot just say, oh, I'm not going to pay this amount. It does have to go through to AP to validate, yes, that is accurate. We have the backup documentation, and either reject the invoice back to the vendor or go ahead with the short pay, however you want to handle that. Now, the question was, and Pat, Regina, maybe you can answer this question a little bit. How does this work with the invoices auto-generated within Plex?
So when the invoices are auto-generated in Plex, when that Nimbello invoice is pushed over through the API, it will replace that auto-generated, auto-vouchered invoice in Plex with the invoice from Nimbello. So once that invoice comes over from Nimbello, you have a ready-to-pay invoice that has replaced your auto-vouchered invoice.
Are there any questions, Molly, about the PO process that came through the questions?
There's one question, replace or update. I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to.
You're muted, Regina.
It's actually going to update because, and you'll see this at the end of once Geraldine does the presentation. It's going to go in and it's going to take your vouchered invoice. It's going to change the things that you do manually. It's going to update the invoice number. Any discrepancies that you would have had, pricing or quantity variances, as Geraldine said, those would have already been corrected in Nimbello because that invoice would have been on hold. So you would have corrected that in Nimbello. So once that invoice pushes back, once the API comes through, then your invoice is going to be updated. You have the new invoice number, any additional line items that were added for freight or tax or anything like that. Those are also going to come through on the invoice. And by the time that invoice comes from Nimbello, that invoice is now in a ready to pay state.
No additional questions. No additional questions right now.
All right. So I'm going to hit on the non-purchase order process then. The non-purchase order process comes through the workflow and you have several options for it. We can auto direct a lot of the invoices to approval groups. That can happen in a couple of different ways. You can have the vendor set to always go to the same approval group. You can have the approval group designated on the invoice itself that comes in through the electronic file or the OCR. We can also look as we build up history to see what the history of that vendor has been. And if it has been approved by the same group, we'll go ahead and send the invoice, this new invoice there as well. And last stop is for it to go to AP, and AP decides where it goes. As far as the communication is concerned, the communication works the same as the PO. You will get the initial notification that you have items in your queue, and then you will also get the escalation if things are outside of the designated period for the approval. You also have the ability to auto approve non-PO invoices. So things like rent, things like electric, they are the same or close to the same pretty much every month, and they have to be paid, and they have to be paid timely. So those items you can set up to come through, and you can set them up so that they're within a dollar range. So if the invoice is, let's say, between $100 and $125, then the invoice can automatically GL code, approve, and move directly to Plex. Nobody has to touch it, but you still got it. You still got the audit. You still got all the information. If, however, it's below 100 or above 125, then it would stop and direct to an approval group so that somebody can look and see why there is a variance. So those are different configurations that you can set up. That is all within AP's control, which vendors they are, GLs, all of those different things. Your details page is pretty much the same as your purchase order. You have your thumbnail up here, you have your large image. Your difference is you now have access to the approval group. So an approval group can be set up by dollar amounts or by individual users. So by dollar amount, users are assigned dollar amounts throughout the approval group. Not all of them have to be filled in. You can fill in just the ones that you want to have in regards to that, but the invoice will always start with the first person in that group and move forward. If you want AP to be the one responsible for GL coding, then we put AP at the front of that as a $0 person, and then from there, the other approvers would be entered. You can also have an ordered group in which you have 1, 2, 3 people in the group, and all of them sign off regardless of the dollar. So you can have it either way. You can use both within the system. That is completely up to how you want to do that. The invoice will always start with the first person who is responsible for doing the initial geocoding, and then from there, it will go to the next individual in line. If it's a limited, if the invoice is within their approval authority, the invoice can be final approved. Otherwise, they will approve it and it will go to the next person and so on until it gets to somebody with enough approval authority. The geocoding is done either via allocation groups, so that can be automatically assigned to the invoice or manually assigned to the invoice, or you can do it based on just a drop down. So your drop downs can be restricted. If it is a maintenance approval group, you can say that only maintenance GLs are allowed. And so you can restrict the GLs that are available to the individual groups to help foster a little bit more independence from the users within the group, but also help prevent potential incorrect coding to the wrong departments or wrong locations, different things like that. What is chosen in the GL is what is going to be sent over to Plex. So those accounts, those amounts, that is what's going to be vouched inside of Plex. We also have the ability to show you the last several invoices for that vendor in the previous coding section. So it'll show you the invoice, the approval group, what the GL coding was on each invoice, and you can actually insert from this segment as well directly into this invoice. So that also helps create a little bit of an electronic cheat sheet versus having users who have sticky notes or Excel files or different things that may or may not be correct and updated. We will show the information from the last several invoices directly on the page. Any non-purchase order questions, Molly?
No, there are no questions in the chat right now.
All right. So I'm going to hit on some reporting real quick. In the reports, we have several options, one of which is a big hit, is the accrual report. So the accrual report, you can search by any of the data that's up here, and it will provide you with a full listing of all invoices that are in the workflow. If the invoice is in the OCR, it's not going to show up in this report. The goal is to get the invoices through the OCR as quickly as possible, and then they are reportable. You have lots of options to track and do various things within the workflow. So on a non-PO invoice, we're going to show you all of the GLs that are assigned along with their dollar amounts. On a PO, we will show you what the hold reason is, who it's directed to, and by invoice line item, all of the line items that are outstanding. And if there is a receiver assigned, we will also show you that there is a receipt assigned to that invoice line. This is exportable to Excel. So you can export this, you can do what you need to do your month-end accruals. With our February release, we are also including an R&I report. So you're received, not invoiced. So you'll be able to pull both your accrual on your invoice side, as well as your received, not invoiced on the workflow side. Also within reporting, you have lots of user type reports. So you can check on the invoice action report, which ties back to those comments we were talking about earlier. User activity, what users are doing, what types of activities, how frequently are they in the workflow, what happened with the invoices. Productivity reports, you can see for PO invoices, how many are going through untouched. So how many are able to go into the workflow and straight out to Plex without needing any intervention because they are within tolerance, they have proper POs, we're able to assign line numbers, all of those various checks and balances. And it will also tell you what holds invoices are going into and how many invoices are going to those holds. Your time to resolve reports, you can pull up by user or by vendor, both for PO and non-PO, and you can look to see how fast invoice errors or approvals are being resolved. Are you getting a lot of errors from a specific vendor? Is there somebody you can target to correct pricing issues or get receiving resolved or different things like that? You can pull these reports to help you optimize what the vendors and the users are doing, not just try and mitigate the problems.
Geraldine, one question, is Nimbello SQL based?
Yes.
Can they write their own reports?
We do not currently have the ability to write your own reports, but we can talk about any reports that you might want.
Okay, thank you.
Audit and security reports, you can see data changes. That would be vendor number, invoice total, PO number changes, what came in originally, who made the change, what the change was. We've also got various audit reports in regards to how the system functions. securities, users, rules, all those different things, so that from an audit perspective, your audit team or an outside auditor has the ability to pull that information and see exactly what's happened. There's various reports for vendor portal, how vendors are submitting invoices different ways. And then also we do have the ability to do reports that may be specific for needs, and then some other internal reports as well. And this definitely is not all the functionality that is within the system. This is just kind of highlighting some of the main items, but we also have the ability to auto-generate invoices, more vendor portal options, of course, lots of payment options, different things like that that I'd love to get into some more detail with on an individual demo. All right. Regina, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. So I believe you can see my Plex screens now.
Yes.
And what I wanted to show you was how that functionality of that API passing back to Plex would happen. So here's your auto-generated voucher in Plex. So when you did your receive, you generated that voucher. It had your invoice number received and had all of the information from your receipts. Okay. Once that invoice came in through Nimbello, any variances, any quantity differences, price differences, all of those would have been corrected in Nimbello before it passes over to Plex. So once it passes over to Plex, you now have a fully three-way matched invoice. Notice that everything that you would have done manually, like invoice number changing, any, like I said, any variances, any additional line items that would have had to been added, those would have already been managed in Nimbello. And so when this invoice comes over via the API from Nimbello, you now have a ready to pay invoice. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what that would look like once it came from Nimbello. Don't forget any variances or anything, those are managed in Nimbello. Someone asked about the AP workflow. So yes, you could, you do not have to have the workflow going on in Plex because it would have already gone through the workflow in Nimbello. It would have already gone through any approval processes that needed to be done. So you can eliminate the AP workflow in Plex. Okay, so just wanted to show you the Plex side of those transactions. Any questions on that?
We do have one question from Rory. For small teams, i.e. one AP clerk, have customers reported a significant time savings from implementing Nimbello, or are the benefits more commonly improved invoice accuracy, invoice visibility, exception identification, and AP workflow efficiency?
Geraldine?
Yeah, it's a combination of, yeah, it's a combination of all those things. There is definitely efficiency as far as time is concerned. The goal is with Nimbello that one AP clerk should be able to do 3,000 or more invoices a month. So if you're talking about time savings, definitely tracking down invoices, the amount of time you spend doing that, the amount of time spent re-entering things into Plex or directing invoices and so forth, that is definitely all on the AP time savings.
Yeah, we generally find that for smaller teams, there's a huge time savings in data entry, of course, and then you get all the upsides of more accurate data and reporting, auditability, kind of all those aspects. And then at the same time, a lot of our smaller customers will repurpose or reuse their AP person to do larger, more significant tasks. Like maybe there are, there are incentives to pay earlier, and you take advantage more of the incentives that are available to you, or you get additional time. So that's what we we find kind of uplift the AP team at large.
So have a question from Kathy. Do the changes and updated data appear in the Plex change history screen or only in Nimbello?
You mean the changes as far as any price differences or anything like that? Is that what you're referring to? Those changes would remain in Nimbello. So any corrections that are done in Nimbello will remain in Nimbello. As far as what you would see in the revision history here, you would see the changes that were done from the API. So if there were, in here, no changes were done, but yeah, if you see the unit price, your original value was, if the unit price is now different, that would show in your revision history in Plex.
And then another question, the three-way is invoice, PO, receiver?
Correct.
And does
So you have
Nimbello have a
invoice.
change log?
Geraldine, does Nimbello have a change log?
Yes, we do have a change log in regards to anything that's happened with the invoice. So if, let's say the invoice was on a no receipts hold, receipts came in, you will see the change log go from no receipts to whatever either the next hold is or that it became ready to export. So you'll be able to see all that information along with the receiver number that was assigned to the invoice. And that's
Okay,
all
no
within the
additional
comment
questions.
history.
What was that, Molly?
I said no additional questions right now. We only have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. Okay. Should we wrap up then?
Yeah, looks like it.
All right. Well, do you want to sign us off, Molly?
Sure. So thank you everybody for joining us today. If you have any questions or you think of anything after the webinar, please feel free to reach out. If you want to reach out to me, I can get the questions to the Nimbello folks, or you can reach out to them directly. But we'd be glad to answer any questions in the future, or if you want to do set up more of a in-depth demo or something like that, we can definitely do that as well. So thank you all again. We appreciate your time today.
And
Thank
Molly,
you, everyone.
one feedback from Bill. He said Nimbello rocks.
Very nice.
Thank you all.
So,
Enjoy
thanks
your day.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.